Trump wins. A new poll shows that the vast majority of Americans support his call to deploy the United States military to crush the riots that the leftist mainstream media has so championed. In this video, we're going to take a look at the results of that poll, how those results completely repudiate the cheerleading from the Marxist media, and why these riots are red-pilling more Americans like nothing else. You're going to absolutely love it. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you as always. If this is your first time here at this channel, we post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of some super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. We help you to think better so that you can feel better. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It'd be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel where each and every day we celebrate together the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. So let's begin with our video chat question of the day. Do you believe that these riots are indeed red-pilling Americans? Let us know in the comments section below. Do you believe these riots are having the effect of red-pilling Americans? Because we're going to look at the astonishing results of a new poll that's showing a supermajority support for President Trump and his call to crush these riots with the United States military. But first, if the coronavirus situation has turned your financial life upside down and you need help to sort out your choices to get you back on track, you should talk to our good friends over at Noble Gold. With the stock market returning minus 10% since the start of the year, you might be surprised, pleasantly so, that gold has actually gained ground by around 15%. The team over at Noble Gold has helped hundreds of families through this crisis, and they can guide you back to safety and give you ideas of how to get there. Now remember, when you need a financial friend, Noble Gold will always be there for you. Give them a call at 877-646-5347. That's 877-646-5347, or you can hit that link down below and get their free investor's guide. Tell them that Dr. Steve sent you. They're good friends to this channel. They'll treat you well. All right, let's dive right in here. The market research company Morning Consult has just published the results of a poll that they conducted since the breakout of the riots that have swept around American cities across the country to the cheerleading love of our media. It was conducted between May 31st and June 1st. And it sampled over 1,600 registered voters. So it's a pretty impressive sample of public opinion. And what the poll found was really nothing short of massive support for President Trump and a total and complete repudiation of the Democrats and their propaganda puppets at CNN and the New York Times and the whole of the mainstream Marxist media. Now, according to the poll, 58% of registered voters support President Trump's plan to use the United States military to quell the uprisings. Only 30% oppose such measures. Now, that means nearly 60% of Americans, okay? That's a supermajority. Nearly 2 out of every 3 Americans want the military to crush these riots. The support gets even higher when asked if they wanted the National Guard to get involved. 71% of American voters support the use of the National Guard to supplement city police forces in dealing with what the survey called, by the way, protests and demonstrations. They never once, the Morning Consult survey never once used the term riots. I did a word search through the 300-page report, and protests and demonstrations were used were over and over again, but never riots. Now, the poll gets even more interesting here. You ready for this? A full 63% of Democrats support using the National Guard to quell the civil unrest, as well as a plurality, 48%, support the use of the United States military. I want that to hit you. A supermajority Democrats support the use of the National Guard, and a plurality support the use of the U.S. military to quell the riots. Only 43% of Democrats opposed the use of the military. African Americans were split down the middle at 43% supporting it and opposing the deployment of the National Guard, and a clear majority of Hispanic voters, 54%, supported using the National Guard. Now, what on earth does Don Lemon, the Black Lives Matter activist disguised as a journalist on CNN, the Clown News Network, what on earth does he do with this? Remember, Don Lemon, and yes, I know, he pronounced it Lemon, I know. Don Lemon actually accused President Trump of teetering on the dictatorship with his call to militarize the nation. Now, keep in mind, Lemon has in the past defended Antifa and their violence. Lemon is a fan of Antifa, and now he's lambasting the president for doing the job that left-wing mayors and governors should have done all along, but miserably failed at doing, and intentionally so. Lemon is actually lambasting the president for restoring law and order to America's cities. He's accusing the president of being a dictator because Trump is actively stopping violence and looting. Let that hit you. Well, Don Lemon, it turns out that in the midst of all of your hysterical hyperbole, that a supermajority of your very own fan base, the Democratic Party, disagrees with you. They actually want the violence to stop. They actually think chaos and mayhem and looting and burning and destroying businesses and killing and maiming innocent police officers and bystanders is a bad thing. Yeah, I know, Don. Strange, isn't it? Right? Who in their right mind would pass up such a perfectly appropriate Marxist revolution? Well, fortunately, even a majority of Democrats would. I came across a great meme I just uploaded on our YouTube community page. Here's what it says. In 1 month, we went from arresting small business owners for trying to put food on the table to not arresting looters and rioters burning down small businesses. Let that sink in. I mean, seriously, folks, if this isn't Marxism on our streets, I don't know what is. We've gone from arresting small business owners for trying to put food on their table to not arresting looters and rioters burning down small businesses. That's the logic of CNN and MSNBC. Remember all their mask shaming a few weeks back? Do you remember that? When they would put their so-called reporters out on the streets during Memorial Day weekend? And you've got this one reporter, I think an MSNBC reporter trying to mask shame this one guy who's filming him on his phone. And the reporter calls him out and points the camera at him and says, look, like this fellow, he's not wearing a mask. And the guy snaps back, yeah, like your cameraman. He's not wearing a mask either, you idiot. And the reporter just looked back in the camera and, yeah, like our cameraman. I mean, the mainstream media is so pathetically cringeworthy at this point. Now, this poll, I think, clearly corroborates our video yesterday. We uploaded a video before any of these polls came out, making the argument that these riots were red-pilling Americans like never before. And we made that argument based on a new study that shows that acts of civil violence and destruction have the effect of making America more conservative. The study was conducted by Omar Walsall, and he's an assistant professor at the Department of Politics at Princeton. And he recently published a paper concluding that the political effects of riots consistently benefit the political right. And what he did is he focused particularly on the race-related riots in the 1960s. And he found that on a county-by-county basis, urban riots resulted in a significant decline in Democratic vote share in the 1964, the 1968, and 1972 presidential elections. The latter two exemplifying a Nixonian law and order backlash that drove a wave of anti-rioter legislation that lasted for decades. And what we found, too, was that this Princeton study actually corroborates earlier studies that found that there's a clear connection between the perpetration of terrorist acts and an observable increase for support for the political right. Studies of the Israeli electorate in particular found that elections held within a few months of a terrorist attack caused an increase in political support for the right. And here's the key: it happened even within left-leaning localities. Another study detailed how repeated exposure to rocket threats shifted Israeli voter support to right-wing nationalists during the elections from the year 2000 to 2010, over a 10-year period. And a comparable turn towards nationalist parties was also observed in the nation of Turkey in response to attacks by Kurdish PKK militants. And so we made the argument in yesterday's video that if these studies are accurate, then we can expect that these riots would be red-pilling Americans like nothing else, in radical contrast to what CNN and MSNBC and our political class tell us. So they're telling us that these riots are driving people to the Democrats. But as we're finding out, actually, no. They're driving people to support Trump and his right-wing policy of law and order. And so This really comes home with Trump's recent declaration of Antifa as an officially recognized terrorist organization, because this brings together the two trends responding to riots and terrorism that clearly shift voter sentiments towards the political right. And now, with the results of this Morning Consult poll that show a supermajority supporting President Trump and his deployment of the United States military to crush these riots, it's becoming increasingly clear that once again, in this showdown between the leftist political class and the nationalist populist backlash, the nationalist populists have won again. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on Trump sending in the military to stop the riots and the utterly cringeworthy, hysterical meltdown suffered by the left-wing liberal losers in the Marxist media. It's going to absolutely make your day. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.